Okay, so afternoon everyone. Welcome to day 3 of our virtual careers event, and welcome back for anyone that joined our sessions this morning. So this hour slot, you're going to hear from one of our graduate M&E engineers, Alex, who's put a short presentation together for you. So he's just going to chat through his experience. I think he's got a video to show you as well, and then there'll be the opportunity to ask him any questions at the end. So there is a Q&A box that should be on the right hand side of your screen. So if you have any questions as we go through, just pop those in that box, and then we'll ask them all to Alex at the end. So I'll hand you over to Alex now, and I'll be back to do the Q&A in a little bit.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Charlotte. So yeah, I am a site agent for JN Bentley. My name is Alexander Cooper. I've worked here since 2017. Absolutely love it here. It's a fantastic company to work for. And yeah, as I said, I've got a presentation to show you now, and after that, happy to answer any questions that you might have after that. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Alexander Cooper, and I am a site agent for JN Bentley. Personal journey at JN Bentley. I started at JN Bentley in 2017 as a graduate MEP engineer, and in the May of that year I began my first role as a project leader on a PE removal scheme, which is phosphorus removal. This was entailing of installing of a ferric sulfate dosing rig on a small sewage treatment works. And yeah, as I say, I was in the role of project leader, so I was managing the design phase, making sure all of the design was up to Severn Trent standard and specification, and driving it with the program, ensuring that all the areas of the company and client were working together effectively. And then in October of that year, I moved on to a role of mechanical site supervisor on a reservoir construction and pipeline installation scheme. These were my first experiences of working on a construction site. It was really interesting. We worked with a large site team on a short program of time, so we had to have all of our work delivered by the end of the year, which was a deadline of the last day before Christmas, basically. And we had to ensure that, obviously, whilst we were trying to deliver this scheme quickly and effectively, that we were also not cutting any corners. And yeah, it was just a very interesting scheme. As I say, I worked as a mechanical site supervisor, so I was working with a more senior mechanical supervisor, and they were supporting me, and basically I was assisting them with chlorination of the new site pipe work, mechanical install of some of the more small instrumentations, and also supervising mechanical subcontractors on the sites as well. So in January 2018, I was given the opportunity to work on the company's completions process. The MEP manager basically informed us that we weren't in the best position with the client because the final 5% of the work on all of our projects was becoming a bit of an issue for us. Basically, we would get they coined the term the 95%ers, because we would get 95% of the project complete, and then the resource from that job was moved onto the next job because we were very busy, and that would leave many jobs that were very almost finished and close to being complete, just struggling to get handed over. So we went to all of the live sites we had at that time and had a look at where all these jobs stood, and if any of them were not on track to be handed over when they were originally agreed with ourselves and the client to be so, we would have a look at why that was, and also drive the completion of all the handover and the completions paperwork. And this then developed into a broader, you can see there, this is from January 2018 all the way up to September, so it developed into a broader look at the company's completions processes as a whole. So we looked at all of our treatment way documentation. So treatment way is how we deliver a project to a client from start to finish. we had a look at all of the stages inside that. We had a look at a document we have called completions RACI, which determines who's responsible, accountable, consulted and informed on every stage of the project. And we amended some of the steps on that and who would be responsible for these steps. And finally, I was tasked with putting together a tracker that the directors could view, and it would show them a broad, high-level understanding of where all of the schemes were in terms of completions process, and if they were on track to meet the date that we'd agreed with the client. If not, obviously it allowed them to divert further resource towards these schemes. And it was also a very helpful way of them communicating our progress on improving their completions activities to the client. So yeah, it was a good tool all around. Then in September 2018, I moved into the role of site manager. They put me on a small scheme to start with so that I could find my bearings, because it is a huge learning curve, but it was definitely the way I wanted to take my career, which is something you get the opportunity to look at JN Bentley. So I'd found that overall of the things I'd done so far, something I enjoyed the most was the management side of things, the project management side of things, rather than the more technical engineering, i.e. Doing design, doing calculations. I found that I much more liked to work with people, look at programs, costs, and construction projects as a whole. So yeah, they offered me the opportunity to move into the role of site manager, and like I say, they put me on a smaller scheme to start with, and this was a capital maintenance scheme on a collection of small borehole sites. I'll go more into detail of what a borehole is in a little while, but basically, yeah, that was a nice transition into the role for me, I suppose. And then June 2019, I moved on to my next job as site manager, again at Shelton Water Treatment Works, which is one of Severn Trent's bigger water treatment work sites in Shropshire. And this site supplies the water to the whole of Shrewsbury. So yeah, it's a very important site, and there's a lot of activity on that site at all times. They have permanently manned staff there operating and maintaining the site, and it was a high profile job. And yeah, as you can see, it was a coagulation and clarification scheme, which in simple terms is the water treatment process for clean water requires water to be filtered and cleaned, and then but there's also other things that you can do to it to improve the quality of the water and make it potable, which is drinkable. So one of the things you can do is dose chemical into the water. So the chemical that they dose at this site, and what we had to do was improve the replace the dosing rigs that they were currently using. So there were 3 dosing rigs. There was a caustic sulfate dosing rig, aluminium sulfate dosing rig, and a poly electrolyte dosing rig. And the caustic dosing rig would increase the pH level when it started to drop, and the poly and the alum were both for coagulation, which basically means that they cause all of the solids in the water, all the particulates, to stick together. So they dose this early on in the process in a water treatment works, and then when it comes to the filtration side, because you've caused all these small particulates to stick together, it assists the filtration plant with taking all of those solids out of the water. In November 2019, I moved into the role of site manager at Woodfield Borehole Pumping Station. So this is the biggest challenge I've had so far. It's a job that I picked up from the very beginning. So from handover to the designers to ourselves, I have carried the scheme from mobilising all of our site compound, everything like that, and yeah, beginning the construction phase. So it's been over a year's worth of work so far. We're still on site now. I'm sat in the site cabin as we speak, and I believe 3 or 4 weeks into the start of the new year, it'll be completed and handed over. So yeah, it's been the longest job I've worked on. It's the highest profile in terms of cost. It's a £1.2 million scheme, and yeah, it's been the most diverse as well. So you can see the scope there, but I'll go through it. So there was borehole cleaning, which is, I'll go through what a borehole is now for anyone that isn't aware. It's basically a giant well you drill into the ground to a certain depth. For instance, these ones here are 90 meters deep, and what you're looking for is something called an aquifer, and that is, in simple terms, an underwater lake. The water filters down through the ground and pools in these areas, and they replenish. And the other side of this is when the water's filtering down through the ground, this is surface water, rainwater, etc. It will become filtered because of the amount of media it's traveling through. So what you get with this is, when we drill down and find these underwater lakes, it is actually almost clean water. It only requires a very small amount of treatment to get to a point where you could drink it. So yeah, we drill down into the ground, and you line the hole you've just drilled, put some casing around it just to provide some stability, and then you lower a pump and pipe work into there, and with any luck you'll pump and you'll get water out of there at the desired output that you need. And then, like I say, it only needs a small amount of further treatment to be able to drink that water. So like I say, we had borehole cleaning on this, which so the boreholes, when we turned up to site, were they're very close to the end of their asset life, and their condition was not brilliant. Because of how long they've been pumping for, there's a lot of sand that had occurred at the bottom of the borehole. So our job was to airlift that out. So we lowered a long pipe into the bottom of the borehole, and we used an air compressor to create a negative pressure which pushes all of the solids up and out of the top of the borehole. Very interesting process. And then after you've done that, just to clean the rest of the small particulates, etc., we lowered a test pump into the borehole, and we pumped the water out of that borehole for a specified period, and we pumped it through filtration and pumped that to a commissioning drain, which basically allowed us to keep pumping until the water was clean, and then we could put it back into service. We also installed a new MCC here. So an MCC is a motor control center. It's basically the brain of a water treatment works. And yeah, the one at this site, which controlled all of the pumps, etc., it was in a not in the best of states. It was, again, past its shelf life, and it was to the point where it would set on fire at random intervals, and yeah, it just wasn't fit for purpose or safe. So we were obviously tasked by the client to give them a brand new flashy MCC. So that's what we did, and it also future-proofs the work. So it allowed them to create further projects to make the site more automated. So again, the more often than not nowadays, companies aim to try and make the sites automated, especially in these remote locations, so that the sites can be reset, restarted from remote locations, which means that they don't have to send operators out to these sites in the middle of the night if there's an issue. And then the pipeline that I've put there was a washout pipeline. So we, whenever you have a clean water treatment works, obviously if you do any work on any of the pipe work or anything on the site, you could potentially be introducing harmful bacteria, etc., into the site mains. So before you put any pipe work that you've worked on back into surface, you have to pump it to waste, just to get rid of anything that you could potentially have introduced to that system. Make sure that the water's definitely coming clean from the borehole, and then you can put that back into service. Again, the washout pipeline that they had at this site wasn't to spec anymore, and it was not in a brilliant position. So again, we just installed a new pipeline to the same outfall where the last one went to. so that they could have a working washout again. And again, we've future-proofed it so that eventually when they want to, they can make that an automated system, so that if they ever need to run to waste remotely, they can. They'll just be able to turn a valve using a actuated rotork valve, which again they can just send a signal to, and it'll open and close itself. So we did that, and then finally on this site we've had to install a chlorine dosing rig. So one thing you will do with clean water to disinfect it is dose chlorine into it, and it's only very small doses of chlorine, but yeah, basically you dose enough that it will disinfect, get rid of any of the bacteria, harmful pathogens, etc. And again, the one on this site was in a not in a brilliant state, so again they needed a new system, and again one that would be automated. So I suppose what they were doing was just pulling this site from being in not a brilliant state and not able to do anything remotely, and yeah, we just future-proofed the site basically. So that's everything I've done since I've been at JN Bentley, and yeah, I know that there's going to be if I was doing this in the next 2 or 3 years, there'd be plenty more brand new experiences that I will have had, and I am very much looking forward to seeing what I'm going to be doing next, and constantly growing and learning in my career. And like I say, at JN Bentley, they give you lots of potential opportunities to try new things if that's what you feel you'd want to do. And yeah, just stay hungry and go for whatever opportunity they offer you. My most interesting projects. The first one is Cowley DSR and Lowwich Pipeline. I touched on it earlier. It's a reservoir construction and pipeline installation scheme, and you can see just an aerial view of that there. So where those vertical looking concrete panels are, that's the beginnings of the new reservoir, and just above that you can see like a green mound. It looks almost like a little small grass hill. That was the existing reservoir on that site, so Severn Trent tactically hide them very well, so they're not an eyesore to passers by. But yeah, the one that was already on site was it was a single cell, which just means one big reservoir, whereas the one we were installing was dual cell, so there was 2 separate walled off reservoirs, so they were technically 2 smaller reservoirs, but you just call them one reservoir. And the reason you do that is so that if there's ever any maintenance required on that reservoir, you can shut one of the cells off, drain it down and do work on it, whilst the other one still provides water to the area. Whereas obviously the older that aren't the spec anymore reservoirs are just single cell, which means obviously if there are issues, it's very hard to carry out work on and maintenance on these, because you need the reservoir to be in service. So what that usually happens is they take it out of service and they have to try and draw water from other areas in the network, which just puts pressure on the network. So yeah, much more simple and much more helpful to have 2 separate cells in a reservoir, or sometimes even more than that. Just allows them to phase the cleaning and maintenance of these reservoirs. So on that scheme, like I say, I was a site supervisor alongside a senior mechanical engineer, and yeah, it was my first large-scale construction project. And like I said, I was chlorinating pipework and supervising subcontractors. I also assisted the commissioning engineer with their documentation and work. So a commissioning engineer is somebody who, once we've installed a lot of new equipment onto a treatment works, it's their job to ensure that, one, all of that equipment is working and set up to how it's supposed to work, and then also that it integrates well with the rest of the existing assets on that site. Yeah, they work at the very end of the job just to ensure that the job can be handed over and it's optimized for the client. So yeah, I was just helping him with his work. I wasn't doing a huge amount with him, but it was just nice to get a view of what commission engineers do, and yeah, also helping him with his documentation, which again just teaches you things. You pick things up as you're going through it, that you don't realize you're necessarily learning at that point, but then you'll look back and think, oh yeah, I saw that whilst I was doing that with him. So yeah, that was what I did at Cowley. The next one, Shelton, again, I've already gone through this before, but like I say, it was a large water treatment works. So the photo I've put there is actually a building on the water treatment works, and you can see the concrete ring around the top of that is actually a reservoir. So there's 1 million litres of water in there, and that is a smaller of the 2 reservoirs that are on that site. There's also a large reservoir that holds, I believe, 18 million litres of water. The water that reservoir holds, the larger reservoir, is still to be treated, whereas the reservoir at the top of this building holds the treated potable water, and yeah, because of the height of it, it's able to be gravity fed to all areas of the network around Shrewsbury. So yeah, it's quite a smart feat of engineering. And I've also been up to the top of that building, and it is terrifyingly high. Yeah, type of works there, again, coagulation and clarification. So we installed a caustic, aluminium sulfate and polydosing rig. So yeah, I was site manager on my first large scale scheme. I learned a lot about CDM regulations, which are construction design management regulations, which are the laws we have to abide by basically as a construction company, to make sure that everyone is safe on site. And yeah, it's something that you can't do the role of site manager with unless you've done courses, etc., which will teach you about that. And again, JN Bentley are very good at pushing you to get the training that you need to be able to carry out any of the roles that you'd be doing. So I was also involved in the installation and commissioning of these rigs. So I worked with the commissioning engineer to install these rigs, and once they were installed, we also commissioned them. So we optimized them to the best they could be to work with the existing assets on this site. And like I say, because this is a large water treatment works, there was already a lot of treatment plant on this site. So there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration when you're installing new equipment on an existing site. I also managed the site commercially, and I managed the program. So again, these are things that I had a small amount of experience from doing the first role I did, which was a small borehole scheme as a site manager. This was obviously a much bigger challenge because it was a much bigger project, and there were a lot more commercial impacts on the site. But again, it was an interesting challenge, and I had the support there that I needed if I was ever struggling with anything. But yeah, the next thing, learned about a lot of the water treatment processes. So again, because you're working on a site that's got a lot of different treatment plant processes, you just generally, even though you're not necessarily working on those things, you have to have an understanding of how they all work. And yeah, you pick up a lot from the people you work with, and also just seeing how various treatment plants operate. And yeah, you see a lot of that when you're working on the larger water treatment works and sewage treatment works. Woodfield borehole pumping station. So again, I've gone through this already in detail earlier on, but I will just touch on a few other things. But one thing I just wanted to point out as well, I don't know if you can see in that photo, but basically we carried out this job through the impact of COVID, and that was a big challenge. We had to obviously prepare the site for being COVID safe. So there are a few signs we had to put up on all of the entrances into the site and on all of the cabins and buildings, and put other processes in place so that where we weren't putting people in harm's way and at the risk of catching COVID. So we had to limit the amount of people going into and out of cabins, into and out of buildings. We had to be more strict with people coming to and from site. And yeah, when it was people working in close proximity with each other, obviously having to make sure they're wearing masks. So the company had to quite quickly turn around and create all of their own processes that would, yeah, like I say, allow all of their jobs to carry on, because the obvious fact is that we're working for a water company and everybody needs water. So unfortunately, when this all kicked off, there was no way we could just shut down and come back when it wasn't an issue anymore, because we had to carry on working so that people could drink water and flush their toilets. So yeah, I learned a lot about how boreholes and how they work, which again I've been through in further detail with yourselves earlier. I delivered my own full scheme from start to finish, which yeah, gives you a big sense of pride, because you feel like it's been your project. And I think, yeah, with the other schemes that I site managed on, they were me picking them up from various stages in the construction process. And yeah, though obviously you still get the same sense of pride in your work. Yeah, I don't know, this one just felt different because it was me delivering it from the start to the finish. Managed site teams of 25 plus people on this job, so there have been times where we had subcontractors here and the client here for visits, and suppliers, etc. We've had lots of people out on site, and because of the nature of the borehole works, can be quite dangerous, because obviously you've got an open borehole that's very deep. We've had cranes here doing heavy lifts. We've had 100-ton cranes. You have to make sure that everything you're doing is safe, and obviously when you've got teams of 25 plus people on a site that's relatively small, you just have to yeah, manage that well. So that was very interesting. And then I've also got liaison with different client parties. So another big thing that I've learned from this job, and I also learned it in the job before, the one at Shelton, was that the client Severn Trent are a very big organisation and have lots of different smaller parties inside themselves. So on this job, we have the capital delivery sector, which is the people who actually drive the projects. Then you've got the operations, which are the people that run the sites. You've got hydrologists, which are people that want to make sure that any work we're doing on the borehole is effective and safe. And you have network control, who are the people that make sure that Severn Trent have water in all of the areas they need to have water, so that nobody runs out of supply to a nearby area. So you have to make sure all of these parties within Severn Trent are communicated with, and that they're also communicating with each other. So you have to hold progress meetings and invite everybody so that they can see exactly what's happening in the job, and you can discuss any risks and opportunities going forwards. And yeah, like I say, I think that's my favorite part about doing the role of site manager, is that you work with lots of different people, and yeah, no day is the same. It's very diverse. So my experience of the development program. So I started the development program in the November of the year I started at the company, and yeah, one of the main things I would say that has been very helpful to me, especially since my workload at times is very high, especially when you're moving into a new role and there's a lot of new things to pick up, is that there's no urgency put on you to complete the job, to complete the scheme. As long as you're moving at the pace that you're happy with and your supporters and mentors are happy with, then yeah, it's a very flexible scheme, and they obviously allow you to carry it out during work hours as well. But obviously there's always an element of you doing parts of it away from work, if that's what you want to do, if you want to do it faster. So yeah, I've got opportunities to try different roles within the company to see which one suits you most. As you can see, I've already done quite a few different roles since I started here, and that's mainly due to the fact that on the development program you have a matrix of skills that you need to develop and demonstrate knowledge, experience and ability in. So there'll be some that in one role you would have no experience of, so they obviously encourage you to try different roles if you want to, because then you can get a broader, you know, make yourself a broader engineer and work on, like I say, things like commercial and program, but then also the more technical aspects like calculation, engineering calculations and designs. And yeah, like I say, it's just very good for letting you try lots of different things. And then there's a lot of experienced people to assist you with your development. So you have senior engineers in all disciplines that are able to help you if there's something you need to, I don't know, brush up on your technical knowledge. Like I say, then you can go and ask someone to give you a little report to go and do a report on, or find something out. And obviously get them to sign off that you've done that. And then there's not just engineering, like I say, you could go and ask the commercial team to do the same, or yeah, any of the site teams. And then it's great for your chartership development, because the company objectives marry up with the IET's objectives, especially obviously in respect to the MEP side of things. Obviously in civil you have different professional bodies, but yeah, it's great because you know that once you're at a point where the company feel you're a fully fledged and well-developed engineer, you're also probably well on your way to becoming chartered, because most of the things you've done for this development scheme also tick off a lot of the boxes that the IET want you to show. It allows you to see which areas you can aim to grow your ability in. So I've mentioned this in the last slide anyway, but yeah, basically when you're looking at this matrix that shows, you know, you need to have knowledge, experience and ability in all of these different areas, you can see obviously after all the reviews you've had every quarter where you're already growing and where maybe you're not doing so much growing, and where you can aim a lot of your attention at. It's helpful to measure your progress from starting at JN Bentley. So again, it's a good way to just look back and remember what you've done. Obviously, myself putting together this presentation for this, that was the first thing I looked at, was all of the reports I've already put together for the development scheme, so I could see exactly what I've done and what I found the most interesting, because of the fact I've done quite a few different roles. It's sometimes just without looking back hard to remember exactly everything you've done. And I've also gained an appreciation for other elements of the business than just MEP. So again, a lot of the things on there, they want you to look at commercial, even have a good understanding of how the civil engineering applications work, and yeah, commercial program, everything like that. There's also appreciation for the client side of things, because there's a lot of objectives on there that are to do with working well with the client. So why choose a graduate role and career at JN Bentley? First of all, it's an amazing community. You get a great community feel here, and yeah, that's important for me because I'm a very social person, and like I say, from the very first day here to all the way up to now, I've never met anybody that works here that I didn't get along with. And yeah, I feel like everyone's very welcoming to you. And as this was my first job in this industry and my first real career job, it was daunting at first, walking into an office with you had very senior people in there, and obviously all the way down to people that were starting with me as graduates. And yeah, well, I personally at times felt like maybe I was worried to go and ask all these senior people questions, feeling like I was going to be annoying them. But like I say, as soon as you actually just go and speak to them, you'd know that none of them would ever not want you to go and talk to them if you had any issues or you wanted some help with one of your projects. So yeah, you get a great sense of community here, and the office are always doing community projects and also doing social events for everyone to get to know each other. And yeah, it's just really nice community. So opportunities for progression. Like I say, I started here as a graduate MEP engineer, and because I was keen and I worked hard, and I was always showing that I was interested in progression and ready to take on any opportunities that they offered me. Obviously, they offered me the role of site manager, and I took that, and very happy I did, and very grateful that I was offered the opportunity in the first place. I've put career diversity as well. So again, when I joined JN Bentley, I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do with my career, and that was mainly because I wasn't sure what opportunities there were. So I knew obviously it would be something in engineering, considering I joined as an MEP engineer. But yeah, you'll learn when you look at what opportunities you have here. You could do work in the design team, in working in design. You could work as a project leader, which is like I say, somebody who manages the design phase of a project. Or you could go out on site and become a site supervisor. We even do some elements of our own installation, so you could do some installation works. And also, like I say, there's potential to move into roles like site manager and yeah, like I say, there's they will always accommodate if you want to try different roles and try different areas, and it allows you to find what suits you, which is very helpful. It's a stable industry, so I mentioned it earlier, but obviously we carried on working through all the COVID challenges, whilst I know a lot of companies have really struggled. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's been easy for us either, but yeah, there's because of the fact we work for a water client, we obviously essential workers, and it's allowed us to carry on working, and yeah, the impact has been less on us as it has on other areas of industry. So yeah, it's very good in terms of job security. And then there's on-the-job training and development. So again, since I've started here, I've been on countless training courses, which have massively helped me further develop my career, especially moving into the role of site manager. There's been a lot of health and safety courses and just various construction courses that I've had to go on to be able to do that. But yeah, I know they offer things like your 18th edition for electrical engineers, and yeah, just development and training are very highly sought in this company, and they want to push everyone through as much training and development as they want to. And finally, I put great benefits, including a Christmas turkey. So I'm not sure if this has been mentioned to anybody already, but yeah, at Christmas they offer everybody a turkey. There's also a £20 voucher for anybody who doesn't want the turkey, which again I think is just a very nice personal touch. But yeah, otherwise, again, just the benefit package in general at this company is very good, and yeah, it just makes you feel very looked after, and yeah, not just feel like another employee to a company. So my advice for anyone thinking about a role or career in M&E engineering, I would say stay hungry, be open to opportunities, and just go for it. If you feel you would be suited to engineering, then like I say, there's lots of different diverse roles that you can try, and I think as long as you are keen and want to develop yourself and are, like I say, open to opportunities, the sky's your limit really. You can go as far as you want to take your career, and Bentleys are a very good company for developing you and yeah, ensuring you get the best out of your career and they get the best out of you. So I'm going to do answering any questions now. So yeah, if anybody does have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thanks, Alex. That was really good. Yeah, you covered quite a lot there, to be fair. So you've probably answered quite a lot of questions that people might have already have. Just a couple for you.
Okay.
So what initially was it that kind of attracted you to the business? Did you just come to us straight as a graduate? Had you worked at any other companies before us?
Yeah, so I came here straight as a graduate. I left university and I'd been looking around on obviously a lot of job sites and things, looking for jobs, and I saw this one, and I suppose the thing that interested me the most about it was when I learned that they work for JN Bentley work for water companies, is that I'd never really put much thought into how water is produced and distributed, and also the same for wastewater, how it's taken away from your home. And yeah, I suppose that was the reason that I initially applied for the role here. And then I suppose the major thing that set my mind on it was when I came for the assessment day that I did here. I just loved the feel that I got from the actual day. So yeah, I was very, very happy when I was offered the role.
Cool. What did you actually study at uni?
I did mechanical engineering, did a bachelor's degree at Birmingham City University.
Cool. And what was it, kind of, why did you choose that route? Or why did you choose mechanical?
I suppose for that one, I felt I was always good and interested with maths and physics, and from just doing various chats with careers advisors and just looking up roles online that suited those two subjects, mechanical engineering was always one of the forefront ones, and yeah, I think it just very well suited me as a person.
Cool. what kind of, if you go down the mechanical or electrical or dual route, what are kind of the career opportunities and kind of development routes if you kind of take that path? Where kind
Again,
of you end up?
I sort of touched on them in the presentation, but yeah, basically, say you joined here as an NEP engineer. I suppose the two main differences are you sort of get an option. Well, I know I did. I'm guessing it's still the same. That you can choose to work in the office within the design teams, or you can choose the other route and go out on site. It really just, I suppose, depends on what would suit you more. And again, if you weren't sure, I suppose there's always the option to try both and see what you think suits you the most. And then, yeah, I suppose depending on whether you're mechanical or electrical, it would obviously be mechanical design or electrical design. And then out on site, I suppose we are more generally focused on doing both mechanical and electrical out on site because they sort of go hand in hand. So yeah, I suppose if you wanted a bit of both as well, then I'd say site would probably be more suited to you.
Cool. How kind of have you found, you're on the development scheme, aren't you, at the moment? Yeah, so how have you found that kind of work-life balance wise? Is it easy to keep on top of, or?
Yeah, really good. Again, I think there's times where, say, if your workload isn't absolutely flat out, which you do get those rarely, the more I'm in this role, then the company do allow you to obviously do a little bit of that development in your work time. But yeah, I suppose again, it depends on how quickly you want to go through that scheme. If you are planning to focus all of your time and effort on it, then obviously you could do some work on it at home. But I don't think if you're not absolutely desperate to finish it quickly, I don't think there's any reason why you should have to put too much of your personal time into it.
Cool. So being an MEP engineer, do you have to learn electrical engineering as well, or do you just have a mechanical role?
No, you don't have to. Again, I suppose really for myself, because I've moved into more of a management of the construction project role, I've got a general understanding of mechanical and electrical. Obviously more of my bias is towards mechanical, but I think even though you don't have to, you do end up just sort of picking up things anyway that you as you're say if you're working on a mechanical design, there are electrical elements that have to be considered, and you'll work with electrical engineers. So though you don't have to focus, on both, you'll end up just picking up a general understanding of both of them anyway.
Super. What about kind of the water sector as an industry? Is that something that you always wanted to go in, or was that just something that you came across and kind of ended up working in?
Yeah, again, I'd say it was more I didn't know I wanted to do it until I saw it, basically. I think as soon as I saw that JN Bentley worked for the water industry, I think that was when I sat down and really thought, well, I didn't have any understanding whatsoever of like I say, water distribution or water production or wastewater treatment. So yeah, I think it was just once I saw it, I realized actually it seemed really interesting, and like I say, now that I'm working in the industry, I absolutely love it. It's very interesting, and you learn it's cliche, but you learn something new every day.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. How did kind of your university degree kind of prepare you for the world of work? Was it totally different, or did it kind of set you up pretty well for site, or how was that?
So obviously a lot of the stuff you do at university is more theory based, and that's good. It gives you a general understanding of the basic elements of what you're going to be dealing with. But I think it's a little different, save for when I was at university. It seems to be very heavily manufacturing focused, and yeah, I suppose being in the water industry, a lot of the applications that you're doing here aren't really covered massively in university. So there's a lot you end up learning just whilst you're working on the job. But like I say, there's still that general understanding that you get from university that helps you set you up for starting at JN Bentley.
Cool. You might be able to remember this, you might not. What was the interview and kind of selection process like when you applied?
Really interesting. The best one I've done. Again, I mentioned it earlier. That's one of the reasons why I really wanted to get the role after I'd done the assessment centre, because it was yeah, you basically turn up with a bunch of other graduates, and you do some social exchange and information. Then you learn a bit about the company, and then you do various little tasks, and you have an informal interview, which I much prefer. An interview where you're not getting absolutely grilled, and it was just a nice chat. Basically, it felt like it was very laid back, and yeah, just allowed me to be myself and relax a little bit.
Cool. And how would you describe the culture of the business?
Amazing, really, really good. Yeah, the people are all really good here. The work-life balance is great, and yeah, I've mentioned it as well, but the benefits here are really good, and it just makes you feel appreciated and feel like you're part of a family rather than just an employee in a company.
Yeah, that's good. I always think, so I started 7 years ago and we were like half the size, and I think even though we've grown so much, you can tell that they've kind of still retained that family feel, which is
Definitely.
Really nice. But yeah. What is your work-life balance like? Is it pretty hectic all the time, or?
It depends, it varies. I think depending on, again, because of the nature of the role I'm doing now, it all depends on how my project is going. So there's times when my project there's a lot going on site and it's really busy on the program, and therefore I am busier, and maybe I'll do slightly longer days. But then there'll be also the flip side of that is there's times where your program isn't absolutely hectic, and you can make that time back basically. And yeah, I wouldn't say that there's a what's the word, a skew either way really. It's a nice balance.
Yeah, good. Going back to the development scheme, how important do you think it is to kind of go down that route and get chartership just generally for your career development? Is it something that you think people should do, or is it kind of a personal preference sort of thing?
I'd say it's a personal preference on, again, where you want to take your career, but at the same time, I don't think it can hurt to do. And I think it's one of those things that you will naturally be working towards over your time in the industry, and eventually you'll probably be at a point where you're with just a little bit of sitting down and putting it all together and planning it, you'd be able to go for it anyway. But again, I know there's a lot of people who do want to just go straight for it, and that the company can support you with that as well if you want to put more effort into getting it done early. As long as you've got the experience to show that you're a well-rounded engineer, then yeah, you can do it within a very short time frame, or take your time with it. Super.
And just one more, I think, to end on. What has been the highlight of your career so far?
Good question. I suppose I'd say this job that I'm working on now. Again, I did say that it's the first one I've actually picked up from working straight from design all the way through to us delivering the project to the client. And I don't know, I just get a really good sense of pride when I'm on this job, because I walk onto it and I know that I've had involvement with it since the beginning, and I've run the job to where it is now. And I will say at the same time, I do get support from my contracts manager. It's not just me having to sink or swim. But yeah, I don't know, I think this job has been fantastic for me. I've learned a lot from it, absolutely loads, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Good,
that is a good answer. Right, I think that's everything. That was quite a nice one to end on. So thank you, Alex, for your presentation.
Thank you.
That was really
insightful.
You, everybody. And thank you everyone for joining. The next session, the last one for today and for the week, is at 1:30, where we'll be chatting to a couple of members of the recruitment team and one of our hiring managers, who will be talking through the application process and kind of what they're looking for in candidates, and you can ask them any sort of career questions that you might have. So hopefully we'll see you there, but thank you very much for attending this one, and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.